Hello, I'm Matt, and this Loxley Quality Time tutorial is to help you with this painting, Tuscany's Treasure from the Kachilio collection. If you haven't already watched our techniques tutorial videos, please have a look at them before starting your project. They give you some valuable information about painting with the quality time range and help you get the most out of your quality time. This video contains specific information about your chosen painting, but we assume that you're already familiar with the general techniques covered in our tutorial videos. Tuscany's Treasure features an ancient doorway to a Tuscan house in Angahari, Italy. This region, once the key breadbasket of ancient Rome, has become famous for its history, traditions and beautiful landscape, as well as its age-old architecture, which has so much character. Tuscany has a unique artistic legacy and is the birthplace of the Renaissance, which has shaped the modern world. Here, first I've chosen to paint the cement and stones around the bricks, and I've mixed up this lovely cream colour using 75% white with 25% yellow, and I've been very careful not to get it on the archway here, which is very important, but it doesn't matter if you overlap the bricks and the stones because the colour going on top will be darker, so it'll just make it more interesting. You can see this developing now. And what you'll notice is that I'm painting the brush strokes horizontally, which is very important because it runs in the direction of the stone and bricks. All the masonry runs in this direction. It doesn't matter if the colour mix you've got, if it varies, this just makes the stonework look more interesting. If you notice on the photo you've got, there's a white area here by the door. It's important to paint round that because it's hard to put the white on top of another colour. So if you leave that white and this bit here as well, doorbell or whatever it is. So we're leaving some bits and then other bits are painted over the bricks. Put a bit more white in there. It's quite pale on that corner. It's easier to work down because then you're not putting your hand in the wet paint. You can even deliberately put in some texture with the paint. So you've got some lines just to make it all the more interesting, give it more character. So you're keeping your lines horizontal, but you can actually leave some brush marks in, not smooth it all out. I'm now doing stage one of the stone archway, and I've mixed this, it's like a greeny colour, using the tiny bit of blue and yellow, more yellow, and then mainly white. So we're working our way around here, keeping just to the stone area, so we're not going on to the cement that we've painted already, and we're not going on to the doorway, and we're following the natural curve of the architecture around the top here. Just putting a bit more paint on this top area where there's more darker, and then down here I'm actually putting in a bit of yellow extra because you can see on the picture, and you see by slightly different shades of using the white and the yellow I'm actually getting variance in the colour of this finished painting. But here I'm just painting stage one of the plants, the ivy and the vegetation down here. For more detail on painting vegetation, there is a tutorial video specifically on this. So you only need to paint the yellow where the actual leaves are. You can work faster in the areas where it's got bigger areas of the same colour. So again, around these flowers, and we're not going to paint the pot, but just where the leaves are, not onto the step. And this is just pure yellow, no mixture. I've actually made a mistake here and put yellow over an area where the flower needs to be, just here. I'm just going to go back in with the white because this should have been left for the pink geraniums. So I'm now going to do stage one on the doorway here, and I've mixed up this colour using mainly yellow. So quite a dark red we've mixed with it, which being the case we've got to use plenty of yellow. And we're keeping to just where the wood is of the doors, and we're following the natural direction of the grain of the wood. So there's these bits of wood are going in this direction, so painting with the brush strokes horizontal, and then you just following the curve around the top there to keep off the arch. So just using the tip of the brush, and any brush strokes that show become part of the painting because it looks like the grain of the wood, which is why it's important to, for that particular piece of wood, just go in the same direction. And then this bit of wood is going like this way across. It's best not to overwork it as it starts to lift the paint off, particularly if your brush is getting a bit dry. So keep your brush loaded with your colour that you've mixed. To get the edge, if you have to go against the grain, just finish off with the grain. Not exactly the colour in the photograph, but it's like this is the stage one, the base colour, which you'll see through on the final colour. So just sort of painting around the yellow areas where the flowers are. And again, there's an obstacle to paint around And what you'll notice is that the actual outline on the canvas that you're painting is showing through the paint, so which is important because then you can see where to paint when you come later in the picture. It's important when you're painting something like the doors, if you're going to have a break, don't do it till you've actually finished with a certain area of the picture or a certain colour that you're using, because if you broke off and came back to your picture, it'd be hard to match the paint in again. I'm now going to do stage 1 of the bricks. It's a very similar colour to the door, lots of yellow mixed with the red. It's more of a suggestion of the bricks that you're looking for. You're never going to actually paint all the bricks exactly as they are. And you're keeping either to these areas marked. So you're referring to your photograph on your instruction guide. So you're looking for the red, more rectangular shape rather than the darker stone bits. And you can actually paint over the cream, painting little horizontal rectangles. And again, some of them are on white and some of them are on cream. But this just makes it look more interesting. It actually helps the finished picture if the shade of red is different proportions of red and yellow, because then you get different shades of brick. I'm just doing these little doors down here. I've made brown using green and red and then added white to make it a paler brown. Then there will be stage 2 which will take it a bit darker in places. So I'm now just doing these darker stones. So we've covered the brick areas and these are more browny. And again, it's important to fill in all the actual white areas where the actual stones are, and then you can add more stones just where you want to make it look more interesting. Doesn't really matter what order you do it in, or if the colour mix varies, you can go back in and add a hint of colour just on one half or one corner of the stone. I'm now going to do stage 1 on the steps here, just using a bit of pink and green, only a very small percentage. Again, you're just running in the direction of the stone. Hopefully add a bit more green to this step here, where it's not been walked on, it's obviously more green, a bit of algae or whatever grey. You're getting different shades of off-white, and you can always go back in and put a bit more white if you think it's too dark. And then actually on this pavement you can see where it's been man-made, and it's actually got lines running in this angle. You can actually paint your brush strokes in that angle, keeping off the plant area so you're not making the yellow a bit duller. A bit more white back in here, so these steps quite white. I'm just going to paint this bit over the door now. It's very dark, so we mix this colour using blue and red, and I've put a little bit of water with it just to make it flow. Okay, so now I'm working on stage 2 of the stonework and the bricks here. I'll start with the bricks, and it's just, again, it's mixed up the red. You don't have to cover the whole exact brick. It doesn't matter which parts get painted. And again, it doesn't matter too much about the particular shades of red that you mix up. I'm now going to do my second one on the stones, deepening these and making them into more featureful stones here. Doesn't matter if you overlap onto the cream, it just adds to the texture of the masonry here. I'm now doing stage 2 of the plants, and with the green not mixed with anything. What you notice about these plants is that the yellow shows through in places, so we're just painting this quite randomly but not covering the whole area, but you're seeing the yellow coming through, which is really important because you see in the photo that you've got quite a bit of yellow on the ivy. Saves painting all the individual leaves with yellow edges. It's just like an impression of the leaves. There is more information on this on the technique video, painting trees and foliage. Doesn't really matter what direction, because as you know, leaves, they just hang this way and that. And then this plant at the back is nearly all green. But what you're getting is the yellow coming through, so you can paint over the whole of the yellow. But the yellow actually influences the final colour because the paint's transparent. So now I'm doing stage 2 in the stone archway here, and again I've mixed very pale colours using plenty of white. I'm actually using the paint on quite thick with brush strokes in different directions here just to get some of the texture on this crumbling stone. See, this is more green and brown. So you're not exactly covering the whole area, just sort of working on the darker bits, following along the lines, using those as your guide. Just leaving some of that yellow to shine through. So I'm going to do stage 2 on the doorway here, and I've mixed this brown colour, which I'm going to put on very thinly and not exactly cover the whole area, because I want the red colour to come through that we've done, the orange red colour. So it's just a very thin layer of brown, and you can actually leave some areas, like just sort of follow your photograph, leave some areas just the stage 1 coat. Just keep going with very little paint on your brush. Don't load it too much. It's just dragging a little bit of colour across these areas. Just doing stage 2 on these doors. no two browns that you mix will be exactly the same, but this doesn't matter. Just get a brown that you're happy with, and it makes every picture unique. Just going around the edge like this to try and keep the look of the door in there. And while I've got this brown mixed, I'll just add some brown to these stones just to darken them a bit. So I'm now doing stage 2 on these steps. A mixture of red and green with white. Doesn't matter if the paint isn't fully mixed, you can almost mix it a bit on the painting. Actually quite a bit of green on this path. So I've just mixed up a browny colour just for between the steps. I've used red and green, then added yellow to lighten it so it's not a dark brown. I'm just putting in some of these where the cracks are and some of the features in the stone, so just little marks here and there. Okay, so I'm just now doing the second stage on stage 2 on over the door here. Makes it look so much nicer when you've got another coat on. Just putting the blue in on these flowers. Just used it as it is. Use the angle of the brush so that you can get the petals. So I'm going to put in these red flowers using the red mixed with yellow, just so it's the right colour red. And then on the step, I'm just going to put these petals in the same colour where they've fallen off. Now I'm going to move on to the pink flowers, made of red, yellow and white. So I'll use the same mix, but just add some white. Then we've got some orange flowers down here, which is a little bit of red and mostly yellow, just a tiny bit of white. I've just put a bit of white in on the wind chime, just to highlight it and make it the right colour. So now I'm going to be working on the shadows for this picture, but there is more details on painting shadows on the technique video. What I've done here, I've mixed up the right colour, putting in the shadows here, so just where the stone's sticking out there, and then on some of these stones where they're setting them off, really giving it depth. You can actually use some of the lines that have showed through, just go along those. What you can do is just tiny little dots just to make the stone more interesting. For the doorway and down the side of the stone arch down here, I've mixed the shadow mix with water so it's not so intense, because this is a dark area anyway. You might lose too much detail if the shadow's too dark. You can still see the detail of the door, but you've got the shadow, so just working quickly before it dries. And again, you can just put some of these little markings in the stone. Just picking up the door, is slightly ajar open there, and then have the wind chime, because it's hanging away from the door a little bit. Just picking up the shadows there, and then underneath the plants, you're varying the shadows a bit. And under here you can go more intense, so this is less watered down now. Building some into the plant area here. Here I'm using the white to do some of the highlights, and we're just picking off areas marked on your colour guide to put these highlights. It's just small areas of white, which is basically where the sun is catching. There is more detail on highlights on the tutorial video, if you look out for that on our website. It's just like picking out the really pale bits. But if you just go over gently with the white on the door here, it just gives it a bit more character while you're doing the highlights. And you can also paint this little white plaque and just make that the door handles stand out. Just these very thin lines of white. Just catch this highlight here. There, with the help of Locksley Quality Time, you can produce your very own treasure of Tuscany. Goodbye.